Hey guys, what's going on? It's Gheesling. Welcome to the next episode of the podcast. Super excited to dial in today and just give a real in-depth update of what's been going on. There's been a lot of new projects going on with Check the Wire. The show's been going really good. But before we get into all that kind of stuff, I just want to say thank you so much for dialing in. Whether you're tuning in from Skokie, Illinois, Anchorage, Alaska, Albuquerque, New Mexico, London, thank you guys. I think the cool thing about this podcast is it's always something different for the most part. We have some interviews, we got sometimes Q&A, but basically I feel like it's just a place to kind of update and really maybe get a little bit more granular than other places. So with that being said, I want to jump right into it. Things with Check the Wire have been going really well, which is oddly enough another podcast with myself and Northernlion, which is cool. And it's cool in the fact that it's something where it isn't always solely dependent on me, which is oddly enough is which I prefer a majority of the time, because I like to be, hey, if this works, it's because I did something, or if it doesn't work, it's because I did something. But it's been a nice change up for me to have something consistent that I'm collaborating with on someone. It's a little bit off the beaten path in terms of something I'm already doing, but that's going really well, and something that we just did last week, we did a live version of the podcast. So I don't know where I got the idea. I'm trying to think of if I could think of what sparked it, but I just had the idea. I think we normally record the podcast on a Thursday, and I think on a Tuesday I said, hey, why don't we record the podcast live on Twitch? And that's what I thought to myself. I'm like, okay, well, it's Tuesday, we record on Thursday, it's pretty quick. And then I'm like, well, we didn't make the announcement for people that listen to Check the Wire, and da-da-da-da-da. I'm just like, you know what, just do it. And, so I ran it by Ryan, be like, hey, you want to do this? And he's super easygoing. He's like, yeah, let's try it. So we tried it, and there was from a planning standpoint, an idea is like 10 minutes, right? So it went from an idea to check with him to just, all right, just implement it. And there were some things I had to change and something I prepped for. One of the things I prepped for is I knew, so normally I stream on Thursdays, and then I get offline to do the podcast, which, if I'm recording the podcast anyways, I'm like, why not just do it live? So I'd say one of the only things I had to prep for to make it a smoother experience is I loaded in a top clips video we publish on the YouTube channel. So that way, when I was making the transition from the show to the podcast, I was able to have something of value and something for people to watch and listen to that they would be interested in, as opposed to just like a loading screen or the introduction screen. So I think that was the extent of the preparation for it, outside of the normal podcast preparation, which isn't a ton, but it went really well. And one of the things I wanted to do during the live podcast, it was important to me for whatever, I'll tell you why. I didn't have the chat on, and it's probably one of the few, if only, times I've ever been live on Twitch and I didn't have the chat pulled up. And the reason being is because I didn't want it to affect how the show was normally run. So if I was focused on the chat or questions coming in, I wouldn't be focused on the conversation. So that was the reason. It's not because I don't like chat or anything like that. And I think it went pretty well. I think the feedback was pretty good, and I think that's the only hard part, is I don't know what the live feedback was because I didn't look at it. And then also, kind of one of the deals was when we did the podcast with Check the Wire with Ryan, was that he would get the video to post. And so I told him, and he didn't ask. I told him, I said, hey, look, as soon as we're done going live, we'll pull the VOD off and then delete it, because I don't want to, it's kind of like, we agreed to terms, and like I said, he didn't bring it up. This is just important for me to keep the terms the same, is that if people could watch the VOD on Twitch, why would they watch it on his channel? So to me, it's just more of like, I told him we were going to do something, we changed it, but I don't want that to take one of his benefits away of the show. So which also it posed an interesting problem that I didn't think about. And there was a post on Reddit, and I don't know if I might have got a tweet about it, but I definitely got notified that there were a few people watching the VOD and watching the podcast after the fact on Twitch, and then it got deleted. So they weren't able, so they're in the middle of watching it, and then it was just removed, which I can imagine was incredibly frustrating, and something that, because we weren't we weren't ready at the end of the show to immediately clip everything and export it. On my end of the production side of things, the VOD stayed up for a few hours, so people were able to watch it, which I don't think is inherently a bad thing, but it's not something I had discussed or talked about with Ryan. So that's kind of, and for me, anytime I make an agreement with someone, I just want to make sure I always fulfill my end of the bargain. I don't want to say, oh, yeah, we can do this, but then let's change the terms. That's just not how I operate. So I think that was an unintended problem that came up, because I know it was a frustrating experience for some people. So I went into the Reddit and explained what was going on. And then if we do another one, which I think we will, I'll have at least that side of things figured out so we can explain to people, hey, here's what's going on and here's why. But my general philosophy when working by myself is to make the least amount of friction as possible, meaning that if someone wants to watch it on the Twitch VOD because they don't want to wait until Tuesday, then allow them to do that. But at the end of the day, it's not only my decision. And so I'm 100% on board with whatever, we decide based on the terms of the original agreement. So like I said, when I say original agreement too, it's just super casual. So there's no like formal written documents, but I don't know. I prefer not to operate that way. I prefer to say, hey, look, here's what we say we're going to do. Here's the terms, and then do it. I don't, to me, I always trust someone in that regard. And just, if they lose trust, then you write something, right? But I don't operate on the insight for most part, especially when I'm dealing with people like one-to-one or friends, that it's like, hey, we agree to this. You say this is what we're gonna do. Let's do it. With companies and stuff like that, it's completely different. But so that was really good. So Check the Wire Live went really good, and we also started a brand new bread game. So we beat Neo, which was nice. It was like the perfect timing to just beat it and move on. And then the next game we started was Jump King, and Jump King to me has got like a similar Bennett Foddy feel, meaning that people or one of the watch factors is the journey and a lot of failure along the way. I'd say it doesn't have as large of following as Bennett Foddy, but I'm really enjoying it. It's very challenging, and I think it's, my expectations, I really didn't have a ton, because you just never know what's going to work, but I've been pretty happy. It seems like people have been enjoying it, and I think it'll be a nice little change up and a break from, the action Dark Souls game style games. Other thing that's been we've been trying on the Friday show is we've been doing New Music Friday for a while, and typically what that has consisted of in the past is I will go on the YouTube audio royalty-free gallery, and then I'll check out some of the new songs, download them, and then put them in the playlist. But I don't know where I think it came from. Someone in the community's idea said, hey, Dan, why don't you feature an artist? Or is there a place where we could put an artist we'd like to feature? So it actually started with, I think it started because I heard a song on Spotify from this individual named Insane in the Rain Music. And I'm like, this is incredible. What if we were just to play only his songs on the show? So I reached out to him. This was on a Friday morning. I reached out to him that morning, be like, hey, do you care if I play your songs on the show? If I give you credit, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, go for it. And so from there, we've done 3 different artists, and it's gone pretty well. I think, one of the things that's one of the things that I don't manage per se. So I have Tyler, the editor, find the band or the group and then reach out to them. But I think what I would do differently is, because I would maybe want to look at a list of bands and select the one that's the best fit. And because I don't necessarily want to play something just because we have the rights to do it, but more so because I think it'll be a good fit for the show and people will like it. So that's been going really well. And I think it's been like a nice way for something additional for people to look forward to on Fridays and change up some of the vibe of the show, which Insane in the Rain Music has really brought a lot to Jump King, because there really isn't much of a soundtrack in that game, and it just has really changed the feel and excitement for the game, especially on my end in terms of putting the show together. Another thing that it was an interesting question that popped up is that, so Jump King, I guess, is a relatively short game. I think it's supposedly somewhere around like 10 to 12 hours. And we're working on putting a trailer together. And I was talking about it during the live show, and someone said, Dan, why would you put together a trailer? Why would you have a trailer put together, a show opening trailer put together for a game that's only 10 hours? And I didn't really respond to it, but the reason is because it's a show, right? Just because something may not be used 100 times doesn't mean it's not a part of the show and a part of the format. And so I'm really excited. And that's something that, I hire someone to do, and it's within their, within their duties of what I pay them to do. So, and because it's important, I feel like it adds a flair to the show. I think it gets people excited. It provides segmentation for the show, and it's good. It gets me excited too. So I love doing that kind of stuff because it's all stuff like that that to me the little things that differentiate from what a show is on Twitch to just another stream. And that's always been important to me, and something I always think about is how can we make the show better, not necessarily how can we make the stream better. So that was something that I didn't explain very well and didn't really answer, but I felt like that's something I wanted to talk about in the podcast because that's the kind of stuff that goes through my brain. And when planning, I think about, all right, how do we just keep moving the needle and making the show better and better? So that was been pretty good. The other thing I've been doing, it was just unrelated to everything that I've been making time to do, where in the past I haven't. It's always, I use this planner. It's called the Phoenix Journal. And in the planner, what's been really helpful for me is there's a weekly habits list, and you could do it yourself. You don't need to buy a fancy planner or something, although I do think they're on sale right now for $19, which normally they're like 35, but it's basically like a chart, and it's, all right, here are the five things you want to do this week, and it's like a 5x7 chart. So here's 5 tasks, and here's the 7 days. Did you do them? If yes, put a check in the box. If no, then you put an X in the box, but you can see what you got done. And always in the past, I've always had one of those 5 tasks was practice piano, and I've never done it because I've always been, took that time to work instead, or just never took the time to do it because I felt like, all right, that was taking time away from working. But what I found in the past week is I downloaded this app, and I knew what I was doing. I didn't know what the app was that existed, but I wanted to download an app that would track how much time I spent doing something during the week. So at the end of the week, I could be like, oh, I spent an hour and 50 minutes doing this. And you have to manually do it. But I did that for piano. And it became a part of my routine of practicing 30 minutes every day because it was something that was important to me. But also, it's really outside of working out. And, I'm fortunate because I get to, play video games as a job. But it's the one thing I do for leisure that's important because I feel like I'm learning something. I know I'm working my brain in different ways, and I just truly enjoy it. But I've started doing that and starting using that app every day, and I have it in a routine. Like once the kids go down, then I'll play for 30 minutes, and then if there's work to do, then I'll do the work. Where before I would just go right to working and doing everything that needed to be done. But I found it's been very important. It's something I look forward to every day, and it feels good. And I won't talk a ton about it because I think I've talked about this a lot. But when you play piano, for me, it's you'll do something and it's very difficult the first day. You're like, man, this is really hard. And then you'll go back the second day and you're like, how did I just do that? And I think there's something to it. And I'm not a scientist in that regard, but something within your brain, like I don't know if you give it rest overnight, and it's just it constantly amazes me what I'm able to do that I wasn't able to do 24 hours before, when really nothing is different. I mean, the attempts and the practice is different. And it's just, it's kind of becoming a little bit addicting, but also there's a lot of reasons why I've always wanted to play. And I took lessons for about a year in 2017. But one of the reasons is I want to be able to have something I can do for the rest of my life that I truly enjoy. And I love playing basketball, but I've stopped playing basketball because, I've seen people get really hurt, and, I've gotten busted up a little bit playing piano. So I know, look, although I mean, not playing basketball, and I love playing basketball, but, I know I can't play that. I mean, technically you could play it until you're 80, but I know it's not something I want to do. I'd want to do, but I know physically it can't hold up. But piano, you can play until lights out. And so that's something that's been important to me. And I don't want to wait to start practicing till it's like I have more free time, because then I don't know, it's been important enough for me to carve out the time, because I think it also allows me to be more creative and be better at everything else, just to take some forced time away to work on it. So that's been going really well. And then the other thing, just a quick update on what's been going on with YouTube, because I've been doing a lot more edited videos, but I'm just continuing to sample new things. And I look at, the views on things and how they're doing. The edited videos are doing really good. Tarkov is still a little bit of a battle, but they're doing better. And one of my favorite series that I'm doing right now, and it's not edited, and it's been cool because the audience has been steady for it. I think there's about 1,100 to 1,200 viewers for a Spelunky City of Gold challenge. I'm just trying to get to the City of Gold one time, and in Spelunky. And typically when you do something like that, the views will typically on a series, the views will kind of trail off. This one, the videos don't come out every day, but they come out a couple times a week, and there's no set schedule, but the audience always shows up for that, and that's exciting to me because I really like challenging myself. And that's one of the things like I've identified, and what I think makes good content and what I produce is difficult challenges. While they may not be difficult for everyone, there's definitely some things that are difficult for me. And a lot of the games happen to be, they're not necessarily easy games. A lot of the challenges are fairly difficult if you're not well versed at the game. But it's been really good, and it's been something I've enjoyed, and it's a nice change up because although I do really like doing edited content, and I will continue to do that, it is a bit more time consuming. So it's just, continuing to find the balance and just mess around and tweak with some new stuff. Another thing that I've been experimenting with that has worked pretty well and it really started with Spelunky. I've been doing first look ats of games that have been around for a while. Like I did a first look at for Spelunky a few months ago. I did a first look at for Rogue Legacy, which came out in 2013. I think I did that last week and had some like 4,000 or 5,000 views. And so I'm going to be doing some more of that, going back and looking at games that have been considered classics, and even games I may have done a first look at before when it came out, but just taking another look at it. So I'm getting a rhythm for sure. I feel like we're moving the needle a little bit closer and enjoying it. And I think what I've put to the side when it comes to YouTube, and I'm sure, this is always a long-term dialogue, is the disconnection between Twitch and YouTube. And I'm okay with that because I'm not throwing in the towel in terms of connecting Twitch and YouTube together. And what I mean by that is creating videos that can serve as like a conduit or a gateway to invite people to come check out the Twitch channel, which specifically talking about Tarkov, is I'm going to continue to do Tarkov stuff, different stuff. But if it doesn't work, that's okay, because it's all an experiment anyways. So that's been going really well. And then, outside of that, just been really enjoying the process, especially with everything going on right now. I've just been, I'm always super grateful for the opportunity, but even the podcast I went and looked at before I recorded this one, because last week, I want to say the podcast was not on the ropes, but I'd say last week was probably the closest I came to just missing a week of the Monday podcast. But I looked at the numbers, and it's just been, steadily growing up. It's not like a roller coaster up, but the people, that you've been listening to, I really appreciate it. And I don't take that for granted at all. And so, it's also motivating in a way, because sometimes when, and I think what's helped too, sometimes when you're doing something and you don't always see the results, or you don't always, know that people are listening or check that people are listening. And that's the weird thing about podcasts, is you can look at the analytics, but you got to do a little homework to even get to the analytics, versus like YouTube and Twitch. It's like an instant dopamine hit, or an instant, hey, look, here's what's going on, here's what people like, here's what they don't. Podcast is a little bit removed from that. Podcast is, you don't really know, and you hear some feedback and stuff like that. So, but I don't know, I'm enjoying it, and I know that Tyler's been doing a great job with the mini episodes, and bottom line, when the time is right, and when it's applicable, and when I can pull it off, I love interviewing people. I think that's one of the things I'm best at in terms of content creation, and it'll always provide that avenue to provide really good interviews for you to listen to, and people that will be interesting, and stories to learn from. And so, and then the other thing too is I don't know what number this is, 80. I took a second to stop and think before recording this. I'm like, man, this has been 80 straight weeks of the podcast. That's longer than a year. It's just like anytime you have something rolling for so long and you enjoy it, it's really hard to stop. So with that being said, I just want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. As always, tweet me at, anything you want me to talk about on the podcast at Dan Gheesling. Or, if you're enjoying it and what you enjoy about it. Because I always like that. That always is just like, it's not the motivation I need to keep going, because I'm going to keep doing it. But it's nice to hear, and then maybe draw more on of what to do more on the podcast. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this week's podcast. And as always, I'll see you guys next Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next podcast. We're gonna have some stuff to talk about because something's happening tomorrow, real time on Tuesday. That's it's gonna be interesting. So that being said, thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.